With virtually little fan base and negligible appeal, the WNBA is by far the worst sports league in America. Even though ESPN, ABC, and other news outlets heavily promote this league, it's practically indoctrination for the general public at this point in 2023, because no one cares. The WNBA is essentially the Titanic, slowly sinking, and the only thing keeping it afloat is the NBA. These WNBA players, despite being so unpopular and not profitable in the slightest, go on numerous podcast outlets and brag we paid more and the same share as NBA players, and the one obvious fact that always gets in the way of this narrative of equal revenue share is the fact that the WNBA has no revenue and generates no profit. Here's Kelsey Plum, one of the quote-unquote stars in their league, going through the same talking points, ridiculous logic, and his fallacies with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson.
That as part of the WNBA, I think what we can do is just make it more visible. Like, it's so hard to tune in and watch WNBA games because of streaming platforms. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to log in, and my poor mom's trying to subscribe to 3 different channels to get the to get the game. Like, that's my mom, you know? A casual fan's not going to put in that type of effort. So I feel like making it less resistant to the consumer to be able to just, like with y'all, I love your guys' show. I turn on TNT and I watch. Some people don't even watch the game. They just watch you. But it's accessible. It's easy. So I think that accessibility can change everything for us.
Therefore, Kelsey Plum stopped it there. She attempted to compare her league, which is crap, to Inside the NBA that covers the NBA and Chuck Shaq Ernie and Kenny that core on TV. It's the best thing going for sports television. Comparing those 4 guys that show to the WNBA is a garbage comparison, and let's say hypothetically the WNBA had Charles Shaq the whole crew for their big primetime games. Who's watching that? The bottom line is nobody cares about this league. Doesn't matter who's talking about it, who's promoting it, or who's even playing in the games. My analogy for the WNBA is pretty simple. Selling this sports league is like selling ice cream at the North Pole in the middle of winter. You can have the best marketing, best PR campaigns, the best promotions, and beyond every major network in the country, but the simple truth is, in a North Pole in the middle of winter, people don't want ice cream. And one of these sad realities for this league is other 25+ year history, they've only gotten less popular with more promotion. And one big up in the room no one wants to talk about is women themselves don't watch this league. You can't blame men for lack of viewership. And speaking of viewership and extreme platforms in comparison to the NBA, which has huge TV deals because they are lucrative and have real fans, the WNBA is in the red and makes no profit year after year. So even having these platforms is the largest charity you could ask for.
What we're doing here. Take me through that and what your case would be to improving the pay for the WNBA.
I think it starts with kind of similar to what you said. So a lot of people don't understand that we're not asking for the same. We're asking for, a similar, not even the same shared revenue, but a similar percentage of revenue shared.
Let me stop her right away. Her demand for the same revenue share may seem better than saying, we want equal pay as the NBA, but it's just as foolish because, despite the NBA's health, if you want 50 revenue like the NBA players, the WNBA will go bankrupt in a matter of months because, on average, over the last 5 to 10 years, this league has lost almost $10 million annually. It's simple math. If you're losing $10 million annually compared to the NBA, which makes hundreds of millions, you cannot demand the same revenue share as those players and owners. However, as we've seen many times, these players' common sense just isn't there.
I also think too that you have to understand the NBA is 75 years ahead of us. So we're comparing apples to seeds. We're not even, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We're not even comparing fruit to fruit. And so I think that a lot of times we end up, and it's no fault of anyone's, but we end up comparing, the NBA. But when we look at it, the WNBA, for where we are compared to where the NBA was, we're doing great.
Now, to stop it right there, I discovered a small, tiny contradiction. 1 minute, this lady is saying that the WNBA should have the same revenue share as the NBA, but the next sentence says that the NBA is so much further ahead. At the same time, she's so close to understanding the concept of actual reality, but it's still so far away. If she were watching this video, I would tell her that you can't have it both ways because, while she is correct in one way, the WNBA is an apple seed compared to the NBA. That is an apple. What she doesn't realize is that the apple seed can't demand the same revenue share as the real apple, which has been established.
So we got to continue to stay on that track. I think it's about, like I said, accessibility to big TV contracts. I think it's about having better understanding of marketing within the league. We got to get some new people in the office that, can appeal to Gen Z and understand what the consumer wants.
Now stopping it right there, saying big TV contracts being more accessible would change everything for this league is flat out false, as when it comes to sports marketing you have to have a product people want to watch at mass, and for women's basketball, specifically women's basketball, there's not a market or a giant fan base thriving for these games. And she also says pretty clearly they need quote unquote new people in office to shake things up. Let me just tell her straight up, it doesn't matter who's marked in this league, who's the commissioner, who's running everything. If your product and league aren't appealing to the masses, nothing's going to change. I think 4 or 5 years ago, Tmac said the WNBA should lower the rims to 8.5 feet, because then most all the players will be dunking, maybe posters. I mean, more exciting. Then right there is the next logical step for this league to actually get some viewers and gain popularity, because playing on 10 feet would basically layups and threes. It's like watching middle school men's basketball. And if you say I'm being harsh, I am, for a good reason, because these players are never checked on this and never called out for their awful statements. Even Charles Barking this segment not once told her the cold hard truth, and not doing that in the end hurts everyone involved, because these players get massive egos. I think they're more important than they are and demand things that aren't even realistic. And one last point I do want to make, because Kelsey plummeted a comparison of the Ember in their first couple years. The WNBA now look, the NBA in the 50s 60s, what those players went through was absolute horrors. But even in the 80s, travel the planes, it was still below average and much worse than today. But for those players like Magic, for Jordan, not once they complain or demand things that weren't realistic. And looking at Bird Celtics in the 80s, when they were building that league on overnight flight of Detroit, they were stranded in a snowstorm and spent all night in the Cleveland airport. These players ate nachos, hot dogs, and slept on benches. Did they complain, riot, and not play the next night? Of course not. They sucked it up, they played, they won, and moved on to the next one. This is what the WNBA doesn't understand. Building an actual profitable league is a grind that takes numerous years of dedication and hard work. And when your league's struggling, people don't want to see you on Twitter complaining, whining, and begging for more money, because from a fan perspective that turns off everyone. So that right there is my WNBA rant. I have one about once every 6 months. I think these players always delusional, demanding things and begging for attention. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.